Hey, friends, and welcome to this special bonus episode. Today, we're excited to have Kate Conwell here. You guys know her from a previous interview we did with her and her husband, Will. On this particular interview, you're going to want to stick around for this entire thing. The hope, healing, and transformation that can come from this is just amazing.
Kate Conwell is the founder of Journey Beyond Betrayal, a faith-based coaching program and online membership community created to support women in the aftermath of infidelity. Drawing from her own experience of navigating betrayal in her marriage, Kate brings both compassion and clarity to the women she walks alongside. She is an IBCC certified mental health coach and a certified Kingdom life coach, combining professional training with lived experience to guide women from devastation to healing and from confusion to clarity. She equips women with practical strategies, faith-rooted tools, and a clear path to experiencing lasting emotional recovery and personal transformation after infidelity. Thank you so much, Kate, for being here and for bringing hope to our audience. Thanks.
Yes,
Yes,
I love
and
you
Kate,
guys
we
and what
want
you do.
thank you. And we want to dive straight into this. What brings you into this type of field that you would give hope to women?
Well, as you said, I'm combining my lived experience. So five years into marriage, discovering that my husband had been unfaithful, and just the journey that came from that of my own personal healing and his healing, and then our healing together. And we had always been open to sharing our story as we could point it back to God, and we could share hope with other couples. And so we did that from, once we had found healing, we started doing that as it made sense. And then 10 years after my D-Day, I launched the Journey Beyond Betrayal and sort of flipped the officially, it was actually 10 years to the day of discovering
Wow.
his physical unfaithfulness, that I went live on Facebook to say, I'm going to support other women in this now in a more public and bigger way, and create this community for women to have a place where they could be known and seen and understood inside of their pain. Because what I realized walking my own journey, while we did have support, I didn't have that many women who understood what I had been through. And most women don't talk as much about what they're going through as we did with our story. And so this is mostly kept in the darkness. Most people don't have a safe place to talk about it, or don't feel comfortable talking about it with the people around them. And so I wanted to provide that. I felt like God asked me to do it, and I just said yes. And then that 10-year mark was the turning point of what October 14th meant for me in my life. And now it gets to be used to help bring hope and healing to other women as well.
Oh, I love that you did that on the exact day. What a punch to the enemy, Wow, that's really cool.
I was getting things ready, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to wait. Like, I'm going to wait a few days, because that has totally changed what that day means. And now every year on that anniversary, instead of, for me, as we know, like, those anniversaries can be really painful. Instead of it being a point of pain, now it's like, oh, cool, this is how many years I've been doing this and helping women. So I agree.
Yeah.
Punched the face.
Yeah. Oh, praise God for
I,
that.
I want to say how much I love that, because one of the things we hear from spouses going through betrayal is, I know this date is coming up, and there's lots of dates. And I know this particular date's coming up. Like, how do I navigate that? How do I work through that? Because I know that's going to be a horrible time. And I love that you chose to do that. And, some of our spouses choose other things. We chose to renew our vows on that date. And we now celebrate that as our anniversary date.
Yeah, I did not want that to be a death date. I wanted it to be a resurrection day. And I see that for you too. That's cool. Well, can you share a little bit about your experience with betrayal?
Well, 5 years into our marriage is when I discovered that Will had been unfaithful. And it started just by picking up his phone and finding text messages on there that no wife wants to see. And that began this trickle truth of disclosure that unfolded over the next 2 weeks, of learning just one thing after another, like just different ways that he had been unfaithful, different, how long he had been unfaithful, which actually stemmed all the way back to before we were married. When we were engaged, he had been physically unfaithful, as well as during our 5 years of marriage, essentially on and off with messages, reaching out to other women, and then physically unfaithful as well as addiction to pornography. So there's just so many pieces that just kept, as you hear one piece after another, you know, you keep thinking you're going to hit the bottom, or you think you're at the bottom, and then only to find the bottom like has just dropped out from you underneath you again. And for me, like I had always been able to get myself through things. Like I had been able to like, okay, this is a problem. Like, what's the solution? How am I going to get there? And when this happened to me, it just blew my world up in a way that like felt so overwhelming. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a plan or a strategy to get through it. And it's such a big, like it's a catastrophic thing when it happens to you. And I think that's a very normal feeling to not to for it to feel too big, for it to feel overwhelming, to not know what to do. Because when this happens to you, how in the world would you ever be prepared to deal with something like this? And
Right.
so for me, I did the best I could as far as figuring it out, and trying to, when I realized, okay, this is so big, I don't know what to do. I just started like grasping at like, what can I do? You know, and I was talking to people, I was reading books, and that, you know, slowly led me down the path of like, okay, I'm not okay. I know I'm not okay. How do I start to rebuild so that I can be okay again? Because I have a 1-year-old child. I don't want to feel like this anymore, but I don't know what to do about it. And so, step by step, as you know, I started putting pieces together, and God brought people into our life that really were pivotal in my healing, and then ultimately the healing, Will's healing, and the healing of our marriage. And it is a journey for sure to get from totally broken to a place of like walking in healing. And I think it's been a beautiful journey to get here. And now I can look back and say, you know, I see what God was doing, but in the midst of it, it was really hard to know what was going to be on the other side of this.
Sure. I don't know if you were like me, but prior to finding out about unfaithfulness, I had it in my mind what I would do if he was ever unfaithful. I would leave. Like, I would never put up with that. Like, but you're right. When it happens to you, it's just a whole different world. There's so many things at stake, and I just love how you were so quick to involve people around you and look for that healing for yourself and allow Will to get the healing for himself so that your marriage could heal. I'm just curious, what was the most challenging part for you with betrayal?
I think for me, like wanting to be able to know what was on the other side of it, you know, and have this like clear path to like, well, this is what I want and this is where I'm going. And I had been raised with this idea of like, whatever you set your mind to, you can accomplish that. And it had worked really well for me. Like I had set a lot of big goals as an athlete. I wanted to win state. I wanted to get a college scholarship. I wanted to win nationals. I wanted to compete at the Olympic trials. Like I did all of those things. And those are big things. I mean, there's one person per year that can say they're the national champion. And so like that mentality had worked really well for me until this happened. And then it's like, well, that doesn't, one, I was never really in control to begin with, and there were many other girls who had worked really hard and didn't accomplish the things that I had accomplished. And and I'm not in control of someone else. And so for me, when I started to get really clear about the idea that I would give our marriage a chance, and like if it was going to work, this is what I needed from Will in order to make our marriage have a chance of even being redeemed, then I had to communicate that and then just sit and wait for somebody else to do something. And that was extremely scary to me. It felt very unnerving because I wasn't in control of him. And once I said, this is what I need, and if I don't get this, like then I'm not sure like that I can continue to be married to you. It was actually not those kind of words, I'm sure at the time, but
Yeah.
and wait and then the waiting to see what happened, because ultimately the weight was on him to do a lot of the things necessary to heal our marriage, and that's a really really hard and scary place. You're like totally surrendered to God ultimately is what I learned, but also just like putting it out there and knowing like, okay, if he doesn't do this, like it's kind of in his hands,
Mm.
as well as like God's hands, but ultimately like I had to let go of my own control over it.
What would you say to the wife listening right now that is in the same situation and the husband needs to do something? Would you advise to like control and manipulate and coerce, or is there something else that you would advise the wife to do for the husband to get the healing?
Well, what Will has said was the most helpful for him was me getting my own clarity on what exactly I did need from him and what my desires were and what he could do. I mean, I couldn't tell him, hey, do this, do this, do this, but like if I knew what I needed, and so understanding what it is that you're looking for from your husband and being able to communicate that clearly. I try to help people communicate that in love. I'm not sure how loving I was when I was doing it, but to get really clear on your own wants and needs so that you can communicate those to him. So then you can see if he's becoming a man of integrity, if he's following the things that you need that would give your marriage the best shot of redemption. But if you don't even know and you're hoping that he's going to just figure it out on his own, like
Yeah.
possibly, but like every woman is going to need different things. And if you're expecting your husband to read your mind, it's just probably not going to work out very well for you guys until
Yeah.
you can, have some better way of looking at your marriage and understanding if you're making progress. Because I think sometimes we just hope and don't have any way of like, maybe it's the athlete image, like measuring if there's been any change. If you're just like hoping that you can recognize it without having any way to name what that would look like.
Yeah. Yeah, this week alone, every wife that I've had a coaching call with, that is what our topic has been, is discussing the needs that they have when they're in the middle of a trigger and they're in pain. What do they need their husband to do? And it takes a lot of effort when you're in that pain to discover what are my needs. But there are very specific needs that are there that our heart is longing for in that moment, that when our spouse can come alongside and fulfill that need, it can ground us. It can bring us back to truth. It reminds me of like where I'm at and what's going on in the present moment. And it fulfills that desire to fight this together. And I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel isolated. And some of the women that I coached this week shared several the needs that they've discovered. And one of those things was they need their spouse to say, I know I did this to you. I know this was me, and I know you're in pain because of me.
Mm.
And I'm so sorry that you're in pain because of me. It was my sin that caused this. And this is a consequence that you are having to suffer from. And I never meant for that. That's not my heart. That's not who I am anymore. And then they go into like, I'm committed to you. I'm loyal to you. I am doing the work to heal alongside you. And those kinds of things. And it's like, it takes away the need to blame, because I know in a trigger for me, I wanted to blame so much. It takes that away, that then it gives the ability to just be like, oh, thank you. I needed that.
Yes. Yeah. And Will did such a great job of that for us in our marriage. And I think I couldn't have known, back then I didn't know how to acknowledge what he
Right.
was doing. But looking back at it now, I can see like, oh my God, he did that. And he still does that anytime, this issue comes up. He recognizes his responsibility. And I think that's so huge. And I would
Yes.
also say, because I work with a lot of women whose husbands are not doing the
Yes.
thing that they need them to, it still matters for you to be able to figure out what you need and what you want, because it will help you recognize, okay, he's not doing this, which like I call it like collecting data. Like you need to be able to collect data in order to make your decision as far as what your next step is. And
Right.
and so saying, if you're looking for that, if you need your husband to say, I'm sorry, I'm responsible for this. I am not that person anymore. I'm working to becoming a new man, and I'm in this with you. And he's not doing that. That's data for you to help you make your next decision. And so that's why understanding your wants and needs can help you gather that data so that you're able to carry that into making a decision about your next step. No matter what your husband is doing, that next step is going to look different based off how he's responding, but you still need the information. in order to make a decision.
That's so true. And I know a big part of our audience are wives, and their husbands are not on board for the healing, or they're still in betrayal, still lying, things like that. We get a lot of comments. What about me? In my situation. And I know you work with wives that are in that situation. I'm curious, did Will have someone come alongside him to help him know what to do and how to support you?
You know, when we look back at our story and the people that supported us, I mean, it's just covered in God. I think because yes, we had a couple that came alongside of us and they like worked with Will together. The husband and wife worked together with Will, and then the wife worked individually with me when I was ready. And then when they thought we were ready, they brought us together as a couple. And then Will was also working with a professional counselor. But like these people that walked us through, they did so much right, and they were not specifically trained. And so we just thank God for them and their ability to walk beside us. And now that we walk beside other people, we're like, oh my gosh, they did that and they did that and they did that. And we were one of the only couples they walked through infidelity with. They had walked through other hard things with other couples and had been kind of pastoral care for churches. But yeah, he had them to walk beside him, and he had a counselor to walk beside him. And then he also had an accountability group that he was a part of that helped him in his journey. I mean, he dove headfirst into his healing, which is so rare. Now I'm learning, because when you're in it, you think, well, this is how everybody does it, right? But now I'm recognizing most husbands don't respond the way I know, Travis, you responded, and the way that Will responded. And it breaks my heart that men aren't taking responsibility the way that you two did. But it there are men that do, and there are men that take more time to do that, and they just don't immediately do it, but eventually do it. And then unfortunately there are some men that just don't take responsibility. But Will had a great support system.
If you had the chance to speak to the husband right now, the one that is not taking personal responsibility, the one that does not show the empathy and care, what would you say to them? If they were willing to listen, obviously.
If they were willing to listen, I mean, they're probably not willing to listen. But what I would say, and what I've recognized, is like, this is not who you are. This is what you're doing. And you have let these lies and these behaviors make you believe that you are something that you're not. And so digging into what caused you to do this may feel like really overwhelming, but this is not who you are, and you can get out of this. There is hope for you as well, and you don't have to continue living this way in these like lies and the shame that you're carrying. And so I would encourage you to get around other men that have been through what you've been through, to recognize that you aren't alone, and you're not the only one who is feeling the things that you're feeling, and you're not the only one who has done the things that you've done. There are so many people that can relate to what you're going through. And if you could just meet them, I think it would make a big difference for you and for your wife.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yes, thank you for that. I was just recognizing that we have an audience that is the wife that is the betrayer as well. And what we have seen for both men and women betrayers, oftentimes they have no idea how to get back into integrity, how to own what they did, how to be honest, because it is rooted so far back in the past that it takes work to uncover that, so that we can let go of the things, like you were saying, that are not me, and I can actually become me, who God created me to be, without these things that I picked up along the way that the enemy wrote on my heart and things like that. So knowing what you know now about betrayal, is there anything that you wish you would have done different when you were going through this?
Well, I think we actually did a lot of things well. One thing I think we did that I encourage people not to do is share it so publicly. I think that there's value in sharing it, and there's a reason why Will was so public with what happened with us, and that was part of his healing. But I don't think that we needed to tell everybody what we were going through. And And so I think it's important to have people that support you, but not have, you don't need to tell everybody what's going on. You just need to make sure there's a few people that are walking with you that do know what's going on and that will support you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's by again, like I said, our story is covered in God. Like, it's by the grace of God. I can't look back and really identify these really painful experiences with other people. We had a large amount of support, but that is not normal. And so I think, knowing what I know now, I would not tell as many people as we told, because there wasn't a need for them all to know what was going on. We just needed to find the right people to support us.
That is so true. And we give the same coaching to our couples, especially if we get to them early on, because it's usually in the early stages that we feel the need to tell. I know I did. And I shared with several people that I regret sharing with because they can't move on. Like the betrayal sticks with people, and now it becomes their viewpoint of your spouse from that point on. They don't get to be around to see the change and the growth and the new man that he's becoming. All they see is weakness from me and being a doormat, that I'm allowing him to do what he did and walk all over me, which this is furthest from the truth. But I know family can be some of the hardest to come back from when we share with close family members, because they also actually go through betrayal. They feel betrayed by your spouse, and it has nothing to do with them. But it's very challenging for them to move past that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we did, like I said, we shared, our whole family knew, and that was part of what Will had to do in his own recovery, was also repair those relationships. My dad specifically was like, you verbalize that to him. Like, you have broken my trust, and this was my daughter that I trusted, you to take care of, and you've now broken her. And that also hurt me. And so you're going to have to earn my trust back as well as hers. And he did not do that. And that wasn't his focus by any means, but it was a relationship he had to repair. And so the more people you bring in, the more people you will have to deal with that with. And like, I think it was handled really well by my dad. I don't regret telling him specifically. He did do it really lovingly and gracefully. But again, I'm amazed with how many people knew our story and how much love and support we were given, because it's not normal. And I mean, I hear people that share it with one person and they don't get the grace and love we received from so many people. So I just thank God for that protection. And like I said, it was a big part of Will's healing to have people know him for who he was. And so that's why so many people knew what we were going through. And so it was really healing for him to have people know and love him and offer that grace. And I think that was just God showing up in our story with Will's desire for that. But I'm literally amazed that neither of us carry like a huge hurt from the number of people that we shared it with.
Kate, you started a online coaching program called Journey Beyond Betrayal, specifically to help wives in betrayal. And I'm curious, what is the biggest thing you have learned from that over the last couple years?
I think the most surprising thing, or what I've learned, is like how similar people's experiences are, despite the vast difference in the specifics of their stories. So whatever their husband has done, and people would say, oh, it's like just pornography. And I don't like to say it's just anything, because the pain and the betrayal and the struggles with forgiveness and the triggers, it's all the same, no matter what the specifics of your story are. And so I think just seeing the commonalities and our experience is one of the big things I've learned, because I would think, oh, well, this person has experienced this, so they should be responding differently than this person over here. But ultimately, like, who you are on that day that you discover is what's going to impact how you walk through it. But the feelings that you're experiencing and the struggles and the journey that you're on for healing is all very similar, no matter what the specifics of your exact story are.
I so agree with that. Thank you for bringing that up, because it all impacts the heart. That's why. And all of us humans have a heart, and the pain of betrayal cuts deep. And it does not matter the level of betrayal, the heart still feels that pain. And that's why we have to walk through similar journeys to process that pain and heal that pain. Yeah.
And if I were a fly on the wall and listening to this coaching call that you have,
Or a fly on the floor.
or a fly on the floor,
Sorry.
what would I get from it? What would you say a spouse, a wife is going to get from these calls with you?
Well, I think the group calls, the community calls, what people really experience, especially initially, is just being with other women who get it. And I've had people who come in and read the stories because we have the message boards that you can post your story on, and they just, before they've even attended a meeting, they're like, I just feel like I have a safe place. Like, just reading other people's stories has been so helpful because I see I'm not alone. And I think
Mm-hmm.
um, Jesus is the answer, but community is the way that Jesus can be reflected here, because what we desire is
Mm,
to be known and seen and accepted and loved for who we are. And that is what we need to find in Christ. But the way we can experience it here on earth is with other people. And so that's what
Mm-hmm.
community does. And that's what you will feel inside of a community, of a healing community, is that, like, what Jesus wants you to feel from him, you get to experience with other people. And then inside of that, it's, you get to hear what another woman is feeling, what another woman is going through, and say, like, oh yeah, like I can resonate with that. I also struggle with that. So I'm not crazy. There's nothing wrong with me. What I'm going through is normal. This is normal for what I've gone through. And also there is hope, because we have women at different stages, and then me totally on the other side of it, saying, I've been where you are, and like, it does not define who I am. It doesn't define my life. There is hope. You're not going to feel this way forever. And they get to see
Yeah.
me here on the other side, but also women who have been just a little bit further down the road than them, because we always have women at different stages of their healing and different lengths of time from discovery. And so I think they find hope and just people who get it, and also help, because it's like, I can share from my experience, but other women get to share from their own experiences and then say, oh, this is like what worked for me in these situations. And we're not
mm,
giving like advice, but we can share the tools or the times that we've been successful in overcoming something and how that happened. And so
great.
I think there's a, I just love like community. I think community is so important, because for anything that's hard that you're going through, to be with other people
Yeah.
who have been through it and can say, I understand you, and there's hope.
Especially in this, it's such an isolating event that could
Mm-hmm.
potentially just crawl into a hole.
Well, I know for me, the enemy wanted me to think I was crazy. Like, I felt like I was spiraling out from the inside, and I was the only one who had ever experienced this and going through it. So when I started to find other women, I was praying for that. God, send me a community, send me women who have been through this, that are on the other side, that I can connect with and get hope from, and just feel normal. And that's exactly what it did for me when I started talking with women and started realizing, you went through that too. Oh, it was like such a breath of fresh air, of like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm not crazy when I thought I was.
Yeah. I mean, this is such a
Especially with
crazy,
the,
yeah. What you're
go
going through
ahead.
is crazy. You're like,
It is.
it's trauma, you're inside of trauma and you don't even know it. And like you said, because nobody is talking about it, we don't have any way of normalizing it. And so then
Mm-hmm.
you feel like there must be something wrong with me, or I'll always feel like this way. And
Mm,
you have to bring it into the light in order
Mm-hmm.
to stop feeling that way. And so I think
yeah.
So
even when
true.
people haven't actually experienced any change, just being with other people can do that for them. Like, even when all the
Yeah.
triggers and the craziness around you, you're like, okay, but I'm not crazy, because she's not crazy. And I would never tell her that, so why am I
Right.
telling myself that?
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's good. You mentioned earlier about people coming in at different time frames into your program. Can you speak to time frames around, like, what is expected? Should people have time frames set on themselves for healing? How should time work?
I don't like to set time frames for people, because I think, as I said earlier, like, who you are and what you've lived through up into that point of discovery is going to impact the timeline from there forward. And
Yep.
so I think saying, oh, it should take this amount of time, it's what I can say is it's going to take longer than you want it to. It's going to take longer than you
Mm-hmm.
think it should take. And
Yep.
that is the thing I've seen across the board. Nobody wants this to last a long time, but it does always last Like the impact of it is going to last, unfortunately, like longer than you think it should, or longer than you want it to, but that's normal
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay. The important thing is that you're continuing to take steps to work on your healing. And sometimes it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 5 steps
Yes.
forward, 2 steps back. But when you're looking at it over time, like you're slowly moving forward, and it is going to feel really slow. Days can feel like an eternity, especially in the beginning, but there's no like should timeline, I don't think, for anyone. It's
Mm-hmm.
just make sure after you've had like a period of grieving and you're ready to like, okay, now what do I do? I don't want to feel like this, and you're starting to work on it, then you'll get there. You'll get there. It just
Mm-hmm.
will take time.
Yeah, I always cringe when I hear a wife tell me, my husband keeps saying I should be over this. I should be over this, and I'm not. And I want to be, but I'm not. And it can be detrimental to try to put a time frame on the healing, because then you're not where you should be. And if you're not where you should be, you're doing something wrong. And so it just brings on a lot of shame and condemnation from that. What is one of the biggest challenges that you see women facing as they're sharing in your support group?
I think what you just touched on, like we want it to be over. And so they come in and they
Mm-hmm.
think like I'm going to be here for 2 months or 3 months and then like I'll just move on and I don't need to be here anymore. And that struggle
Yeah.
with it moving slower than you want it to. I mean, and I don't like, I've had women come in and it's not even their husband saying it. Sometimes it is their husband saying you should be over it right now, but they're just thinking like I shouldn't be impacted by this anymore. Like this, I should be able to move on. Why can't I move on? And I'm why do you think you would be able to just like get over this? It is such a big deal. And I think people don't recognize it for how impactful it really is. And so just that desire for it to be over, I think is one of the biggest
Mm-hmm.
struggles that women face, and like recognizing this is a journey, and it's okay if like 5 years down the road you still are impacted by a trigger. Like now you'll have tools, I hope, to help you with that, and you're not going to stay stuck in that place. But like there's an impact of this that's going to like last, and I don't say that to be like discouraging, but rather like to normalize what you're going through, to recognize that like it's okay that like you're having a hard time moving forward because this is a trauma and you need tools that you probably didn't have to utilize in other parts of your life. I mean, some people have been through more trauma. I hadn't experienced a lot of major trauma in my life leading up to this, and so I had to learn how to deal with that and recognize it for what it was, not say, "Oh, like I this is a little thing and it's not another fight." Like this isn't a marital fight. It's not uh, like a little thing, it's a big thing. And so unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
like it's just going to take time, and that is not what people want to hear, but it is the
Yeah.
truth.
I would say the reason that's true is it's grief. And we have to process it like a death. And when someone in our life close to us dies, it takes a long time to walk through that grief. And there is no time frame on that. And some people it takes 2 years, some people it takes a lot longer or a lot less. It really just depends on, I think, the wholeness of the individual and how they choose to process that grief. Because I think the longer they resist it, not deal with it, and avoid it, the longer it lasts. But the quicker somebody is allowing that grief to be there and allowing themselves to process it, that it starts to move out of the body. So the triggers come less and the pain comes less over time. That's just been my experience, is that it's the grief. That's what is so challenging.
Yeah, and you never like totally move past grief, right? Like if a person
Right.
dies, nothing is ever going to bring them back. So
Right.
there will be times like in the future you'll think of them and still be sad. That doesn't mean you haven't
Mm-hmm.
healed. And so
Right.
I stole this from Travis. I think you said it like what you resist persists, and
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have started you I stole that from you. So thank you for that wisdom.
It's good. I stole it from somebody else, I'm sure.
Clever saying, yeah, yeah.
So you mentioned triggers. And one of the most common questions we have right now is the couple's doing great. Things are working good. Everything seems fine. Then all of a sudden, bam, there's
Boom.
a trigger, and they are the spouse, the betrayer is like, I'm so confused right now. We were good. What has happened? How do you walk spouses through triggers?
First of all, like that's, I mean, trigger in itself, right? Like it's going to come out of nowhere. That's the hardest part. If we saw it coming, we could be better prepared, I think, for it. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
makes triggers so hard is that they can just come out of the blue. It could be something you see on TV or something you hear on the radio or like a smell or whatever. And we aren't ready for it. And so I think getting tools to help you once you've experienced the trigger, uh, to help you regulate what's happening, because you won't be able to stop that initial like, ah, like my heart rate is racing, my mind is like swirling, I'm going, but as soon as you can recognize that, there's a whole bunch of tools that you can use. And the more tools that you can have inside your tool belt, the better, because different triggers are going to require different tools to help you. I mean, there's breathing techniques is one thing I work on with people, recognizing, what am I labeling what you're feeling and recognizing if it's something in the present or is it something from the past, and why am I, and starting to question, the experience that you're having to help put it inside of a perspective. I mean, sometimes you just need to get out of there and like go for a run or like go punching bag or something. There's all different ways that you can handle it when it's happened. Unfortunately, like we cannot prepare ourselves for the unexpected, and that's what makes this
Yeah.
so hard. But I think it will come out of the blue, and the husband again is going to, like you said earlier, Adele, just recognize like this is a normal part of the process. There's nothing wrong with your wife because she's feeling, so it doesn't mean that she hasn't forgiven you. It doesn't mean that everything like that you have experienced up to that point is now erased. It's just like in this moment, this is what's real right now, and how do we move through that together? And the best thing that a husband can do is recognize if he's a part of the healing and you guys are working towards reconciliation, like just to acknowledge her. And it will feel confusing, and then it's probably what it's going to do is it's going to trigger your shame, and so you're going to have your own experience inside of that. And it's really hard. I mean, now on the other side of this, it's hard as the man. I think you have a really hard job in the healing process. The weight of healing is on you, and I can recognize that now, but I did not recognize that when I was in the middle of it. Like I didn't recognize that as the woman experiencing the triggers.
Mm-hmm.
You were the enemy, and you're I'm probably gonna trigger you in my own trigger. But if you can like
You're the
start,
reason.
yes, yeah,
You're the
but
reason
it's
I'm here.
normal. You'll get through it. It is a moment, and it doesn't define everything else. Like all that progress you've made is still there. It's just that you need to get through this moment, and you'll get back on track. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
if you can recognize that, but it takes practice, and that's the hard thing, as you guys know, like some of these things, the more you experience them, the better practice you get, and then the better able you are to handle them. And unfortunately, some of it is just like going through it, and then you're like, okay, like I've built up this muscle, it's like
Mm-hmm.
exercising. The more you deal with triggers, if you're actually actively fighting back, the stronger you become at being able to defeat them.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Resiliency.
For someone who's interested in joining Journey Beyond Betrayal, and maybe they're experiencing some anxieties or stress around should I join, should I not, what would you say to them?
I would say I understand what you're feeling, and there is a lot of fear around opening up and sharing what you're going through. And when you get inside of a community of women who understand, and this is not a giant community, there's not hundreds of women inside the Journey Beyond Betrayal. We have very intimate group meetings. And so you're going to be with a small group of women who are going to validate what you're experiencing. They're not going to judge you. There's just people who are walking through the same thing that you're walking through. And as
Mm-hmm.
scary as it is to open up and let somebody else in, like the moment that you do it, I promise you, the moment that you do it inside of a safe and confidential place like the Journey Beyond Betrayal community, like you will feel a weight released in an instant. And I can't necessarily convince you of that, but like what I can tell you is that woman after woman has experienced it. And in a moment you will have hope that you haven't had, and you will experience being known and loved and seen and accepted inside of like on earth. And that is
Mm-hmm.
so powerful. Like I don't know that you can put into words what you actually feel when you experience that, but it's like a weight, I think, lifted off of you. And I want that for other people. That's the whole point of this community, because I don't think anybody should have to walk through this alone, and the enemy wants to keep you isolated. And that's one, I guess that's the other thing I would say, like, you're fighting the enemy. And when you can recognize that, like, this is the enemy that's telling me not to do, like, he's the one that wants to keep me isolated and in shame. And then you can recognize, I need to fight back against that voice, because it's the enemy's voice. It's not my own voice. It's not my husband's voice. Like, then I think there's a shift, because your outward battle, you're recognizing like who you're really fighting against. And when I'm fighting against the enemy, like, I have a fire inside of me that is not the same as what I'm fighting against, like, even myself in my head or the person in front of me.
Me too. We have such a passion of exposing evil and what the enemy is really up to. In fact, I'll give a little plug for season 3, because we just planned it yesterday, but we're going to be talking all about 6 layers of deception that the enemy has. And he utilizes all 6 of them to trap us. And each one of them is in a blind spot that we don't even know exists until we see it. And once we see it, then we can actually do something about it and get freedom from that and step outside of the attack that he has us trapped in. And so we're excited for that.
Amen.
But you're so
That's
right.
really good. Tune in next season.
Yes, we're excited. But until we recognize who we're really fighting, it is just a trap of feeling so overwhelmed with not being able to get out.
Yes. Ephesians 6:12 says, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but there's a hierarchy of 4 levels of evil that's behind us, that's behind the flesh and blood that we're actually fighting against. Amen.
Well, I also want to just speak to the wives that are watching, that are considering joining Journey Beyond Betrayal. I am working with several wives that have been with Kate and are still in the group. And they just have amazing things to say of exactly what you said. They feel like they have support. They have validation, understanding, encouragement. They feel uplifted by the calls. And you go through books as well. Is that right? And so you're learning together. And when you're learning with a group of women that are all going through the same thing, and you all have light bulb moments and you're getting different things from the book, it is powerful, so powerful for your own healing. So I just also want to encourage you, if you're on the fence of taking this step to join Journey Beyond Betrayal, absolutely take the step. Just do it. You will not regret it. And maybe you're a couple that's interested in, well, we want a support group together. That's what Travis and I do. We have a betrayal group coaching just for couples where both husband and wife show up and they get the same experience, but together. And so if that's something you're interested in, we'll put a link in the description below for both of these options so that you can just easily scroll down there and click that depending on what your next step is.
Great. And then to finalize, I have one last question before we desire to get the details of how to contact you. But what are we not asking that we should ask and that a betrayed wife really needs to hear?
One of the things that I continue to hear from betrayed wives is, like, especially when their husband is not on board. So, like, that's what I work, as you said, I work with a lot of women whose wife is not on board. And I think what I would say is that the number one way that you can give your marriage the best shot of success is to do what you are in control of, which is to pursue your own healing. And you can make the decisions about that when your husband is not making decisions for his healing, or you're waiting for him to make his decisions. But no matter what, like, you are going to have to heal from this. And so I think the number one mistake women make is, like, waiting for their husband to do something before they decide to do something for themselves. And that's not how I did it. And I recognize, like, that there's I brought my own personal journey into that choice, right? And so I want to help other women make that choice sooner, to heal for themselves, because then your marriage will be rebuilt with you as a healed person. And when your husband decides to join you in the healing process, he will have his own healing work as well. And you'll be able to come back together as two healed people. I mean, we're always broken, but, you know, like, you'll have healed from this. And that's the best way you can give your marriage the foundation on which it needs to be rebuilt, is you'll have to do your own work and to not allow your decisions especially in the beginning, to be impacted by what he's doing, but to think about what it is that you need and then go after that, because that will give you the clarity that you need for your marriage, as well as the healing that you need as a person.
Yeah, that's so true. We say this often, that no one can heal your heart but you
Amen.
and God. Your spouse cannot heal your heart, even though they may be the reason you have wounds. God is the only one that can heal. And when we wait on our spouse to get our healing, it is detrimental to me. It only destroys my heart further by not getting the healing that I really need through betrayal. So we preach that as well. Like, you've got to go after your own healing because you're the only one that's going to do it.
Amen. Personal responsibility.
And you deserve it. You deserve to not
Right.
stay stuck in this pain and betrayal. It hurts. Who wants to live their life stuck in that? And that misery does not go away on its own. Time does not heal. Time makes it worse, actually. So it's important.
Yeah. And what are the top ways that someone can reach out to you?
I have a website, journeybeyondbetrayal.com, and you can access free resources there. You can book a call with me there, and you can get on my newsletter list so that you're getting, email support as well. And so that would be where I direct. You can also find my social media links on my website, but I'm at Journey Beyond Betrayal on Facebook and Instagram. And so that is where I would connect with me. I do a lot of stuff on Instagram if you're looking for like resources, but I also have an email list that you can get resources that way if you're not on social media.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us here today. And I want to talk to the audience for just a moment. This is a very specific interview for wives who have been betrayed. But actually, this is for everyone too. Because the things we mentioned here today, the things that we've talked about, will absolutely give hope and healing to every single one. Taking personal responsibility, surrounding yourself with a community of like-minded people who love Jesus, who love you, who will speak truth into you. Getting professional help, like Journey Beyond Betrayal, that you can get into a community, get around like-minded people, share your story, hear hope for yourself. There's no timeline in your healing. I think that's one of the most impactful things we've learned today. And that also that the things you're feeling, the things that you're going through is normal. I want to thank Kate for being here. Thank you for your time. I know that what you're doing is making a huge difference. You have blessed Adele and I in our life. We love sending people to you. Obviously, we're not partnered with you. We get nothing for sending anybody to you other than the satisfaction of, man, we're sending
Right.
somebody to hope. And so we appreciate you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Oh, can I just echo that back? I mean, because I
Yeah.
love being in this journey with you guys and being able to say, hey, go watch your videos. I mean, I don't know how many of your videos like my members have seen, but they're always telling me that they've watched it. And I think especially the two of you, because Travis, you have a way of speaking to men so that their shame wall, it comes down because you are transparent with your story. And I've had so many people share with me the power of listening to your videos because they get to experience both sides, because you are sharing from both sides of the story. And so thank you for what you do, because it is so powerful and it has helped so many people like inside of my community. And I know even in more, I shout your praises all the time.
Thank you.
I received that.
It's so fun to be in kingdom work together, even though we've walked similar journeys of pain. Like, knowing that all of that is redeemed by how we're helping people now makes it all worth it.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
All right. Well, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Okay. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you in the next episode.